Welcome everyone to Inside the MAAC. We can all finally take a deep sigh of relief because we've officially made it to tournament time. I'm Connor Corey, joined alongside me, Tony Wetmore and Brittany Brown-Lieben. We'll hear from the men's basketball beat reporters Nick Boyd and Becca Calkins in the second half of our show. On Saturday, the top two teams, the women's basketball MAAC side, squared off in Hampton. And even though the game did not affect the team's seedings, it clearly didn't matter to either the Stags or the Bobcats. Let's take that highlight from Saturday's game.
Last day of the 2024-25 season, as the number 1 seed Fairfield took a trip up to London Court to take on the number 2 seed Quinnipiac Bobcats. Fairfield enters the game with a 42 MAAC game win streak.
In the first quarter, Carson Martin has the ball. She finds a cutting Anna Foley, who makes some space, puts some moves on her defender, and is able to get that space to hit the jumper. It's good.
Lauren Beach with the ball gets it stripped out by Ella O'Donnell. She's going to take a second, give it to first-year guard Gallerby, the point guard of the team. She's going to bring the ball up, create space, and drive in the lane and score the layup.
On the inbound, Martin gets the ball from Foley and gets the three.
Next play, Foley managed to court pass it, and Martin drains the three. Bobcats up 23-7.
Isabella Nicoletti-Leite finds Raina Brown, who gets the layup and scores.
Ravid at the point, gets it to Grace Labarge, and bang, she drains the three.
Lviv turns the ball over, and Megan Anderson is able to steal the ball and take it cross court. The layup is good, but Bobcats are up 38-32.
Nicoletti-Leite at the point finds Foley out of position. Anderson once again makes the layup.
Grisdale by the logo turns it over, and again it's Anderson cross court, but Grisdale gets the stop. It's a jump ball instead.
Martin on defense with the steal. She's going to take it cross court. Give her a second of time. See it cutting O'Donnell, and O'Donnell hits the three.
Bobcats up by 1, 53-52. Fairfield starts the fourth quarter with a bucket from none other than Anderson.
Next play, Foley gets the ball and finds lane, scores the layup with contact.
With just under 3 minutes left in the game, Labarge lands the dagger, scoring a 3-point play. Bobcats win 72-65.
Quinnipiac ended Fairfield's undefeated MAAC season. Bobcats had their second highest points scored in the first quarter. Both teams will be traveling to Atlantic City for the MAAC tournament with a first-round bye.
Now, there are 5 other games that took place across the MAAC women's basketball landscape that decided the 10 teams that are finally going dancing. In the top 2 seeds, like we mentioned, are the Fairfield Stags and the Quinnipiac Bobcats. The top 6 teams received a first-round bye, and you can see it on your screen right there. Siena, Mount St. Mary's, Marist, and Merrimack all round out that top 6. As if March isn't not chaotic enough, the 6 through the 9 seed all ended with a 9-11 record. Heading into Atlantic City, Iona secured the final seed. Sacred Heart, Riders, and Niagara season have officially come to an end. Now, guys, I do want to go back to that Quinnipiac versus Fairfield game, just like absolute chaos. 8 lead changes, and I got to ask you, let's dive into that game on Saturday a little bit more. How much did that game impact for Quinnipiac heading down into Atlantic City?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right, so I think it was kind of impactful for Quinnipiac overall, meaning that they slayed the giant. Fairfield's going into the season undefeated in the MAAC 2 seasons in a row. That's pretty impressive. No one's been able to beat them yet. Now they're kind of seen as they're beatable. They're not they have a target on their back that if Quinnipiac can do this, maybe another team can. So I think it's really important that Quinnipiac got this win, not only for themselves, knowing that if there's a possible championship matchup, they can beat them again. But overall, I think other teams now can see that we can beat Fairfield if we play our best basketball game.
Yeah, to your point, Quinnipiac just proved Fairfield can be beaten, but it's hard to beat a team like that twice. We saw Quinnipiac on Thursday against Mount St. Mary's struggle to keep the lead. They were able to come out on top, but they let Mount St. Mary's back into the game. Same thing with Fairfield. Strong start, let them back in. But we saw a lot of growth from the Bobcats that they were able to have that lead and come out on top in their first games against Mount St. Mary's and Fairfield. They weren't able to keep their leads, but, they were really able to prove that they could. However, I just think it is really hard to have a team like Fairfield and beat them twice. And especially now, that was a revenge game for Quinnipiac. The second matchup, or third matchup, I should say, going into the tournament, if we see it, it will be another revenge game now for Fairfield for breaking that 42-game win streak in the MAAC.
No, I agree. Going off that, I think kind of saying how, they beat Fairfield, but a really big point of how it was the revenge game for Quinnipiac was that it was their defense that made them stand out. They came out hot in the first quarter. They won the jump ball, and that's how, they had momentum going. They wanted to win the game. But I think it came down to the defense, how Coach Fabry has talked all season about how important playing good defense is on this team, how important it is to box on a rebound, and we really saw it against Mount St. Mary's and Fairfield. So I think them having that has shown how their growth of defense has gone through the season. I think that's what's really important from this game. And going to the MAAC tournament, knowing you can play great defense is really important for them.
Yeah, for the other teams in Fairfield's bracket, again, they got punched in the mouth. They were flustered. They've shown that, if you come out with that defensive intensity that Quinnipiac did, you can have a huge impact on Fairfield's game.
Yeah, I think the defense is taking great strides for the Quinnipiac Bobcats. And we talked about it before the game on Saturday, where they've played 35, maybe 30 minutes to compete with Fairfield. Teams across the entire MAAC have, but you really saw a full, complete 40-minute game for the Bobcats that allowed them to win, especially that 23-7 lead after the first quarter absolutely helps. Now, we're going to look at the entire bracket now, and head coach for the Bobcats, Trish Fabry, has talked about how good the MAAC is, but the conference does not quite get the same respect it deserves, according to Fabry. And then when it comes down to it, who's the one team that is going to be breaking the bracket when it comes down to Atlantic City this upcoming week?
Yeah, I think I just mentioned my pick, Mount St. Mary's. They're led by Joe Raffalo, Anna Lemaster, and they have other players that have really stepped up this season for them. We saw it against Quinnipiac. They don't go away. It doesn't matter how the game starts. They were even able to beat Siena, who's higher in those rankings as we go into the tournament. But, I really think that, especially behind the leadership of Raffalo and Lemaster, Mount will make some big moves in this tournament.
See, I understood that. I was thinking about St. Mary's, but I took the 3 seed. I think Siena's a team to watch out for. They were very good last year going into season 2. Teresa Sepola, Anisha Jackson, Anijah Brown, averaging all around 16 points a game, 15 points a game. They're just really offensive presence. They're strong on the court. And Anijah Jackson, with their defense and her ability to see the court, I think they're just really a fighting factor. And I think that if they have the chance now, seeing that Quinnipiac can defeat Fairfield, I think they kind of have that momentum going for them, especially they just have a strong offensive presence. I think they could make a run.
Yeah, I think that Siena struggled against Quinnipiac, and then Quinnipiac beat Fairfield. So I really don't see Siena competing with Fairfield. I know they're on the other side of the bracket. If it came down to it, I would take Fairfield over Siena. Okay.
Now, as we look at it, Fairfield's record is now 25-4, and Quinnipiac's is now 26-3. Now, looking ahead to next Sunday's selection show after all the tournament games are decided, what do you guys think the chances are that the MAAC sees a 2-bid conference on the women's side, and it would be for the first time since 2001? I think it's a real possibility.
I think it's a possibility too, but Tony, I think we're going to agree with this. I think it's only going to be a 2-bid team if Quinnipiac wins the MAAC. Fairfield has had AP votes since last season. They're a recognized team. They're respected in the women's basketball community. But if Quinnipiac doesn't win, I don't think they'll get a at-bid vote. Talking yesterday, Quinnipiac is 5 in the RPI. They went up 5 points to 45 in the RPI. They're 98 in the net. I just don't think that they're being respected as they've this season to get the at-bid vote compared to other teams. But if they win the MAAC, there'll be 2 teams going.
So you read my notes. I said exactly based on the net rankings, Quinnipiac is disrespected by committees. So in their non-conference schedule, super hard. We have Southeastern Louisiana at 97, while Quinnipiac sits at 98. And they beat them by 17. And then Harvard, who they beat by 23, is ranked at 36. Princeton up there as well. And Fairfield, who now only dropped 2 spaces in the net to 51 after that loss against Quinnipiac. So it's clear that even though that non-conference schedule, which is what you want to help with your rankings in the earlier days of the season, it's not really helping Quinnipiac because they're just being overlooked. But, I really don't see them taking Quinnipiac if Fairfield does win the MAAC. But to your point, I think that if Quinnipiac comes out on top, Fairfield has better of a shot of getting that 2-bid going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and just looking at a national level, Quinnipiac's non-conference schedule, like you said, they played Harvard, they played Princeton, and looking at a lot of bracketology from national outlets, Princeton and both Harvard have a lot of the first 4 teams, last 4 teams in, first 4 teams in. So there's a big possibility that, like you said, they've been disrespected throughout the entire year. Even if you look at just the analytics and the numbers, they probably should be a lot higher. I feel like I'm just repeating everything that you guys have said, but I think it's a worthwhile question to ask and very important one. But like you said, if Quinnipiac ends up winning the MAAC and upsets what we think Fairfield in that conference championship game, Fairfield, we would think all in agreement that they get an at-large bid and Quinnipiac would be that automatic qualifier. But before we get out of here, and we've kind of alluded to it a little bit more, but as we kind of wrap this segment up, who do you guys think do you guys have winning this MAAC tournament? I feel like we're kind of all a little bit of agreement, but I'll let the conversation open up a little bit.
Yeah, I see Fairfield coming out on top. We did see them able to come back from that 23-7 deficit in the first quarter. And like I said earlier, it's hard to beat a team like that twice. So if we do see Quinnipiac versus Fairfield in the championship, whoever it is, they had that 42-game win streak snapped. So they're going to be looking for that revenge. They're going to be looking for, okay, even though we had the streak snapped, what can we do to still have the season be considered a great success, which is, of course, a MAAC championship and a bid to the NCAA tournament. So I think Fairfield, especially led by Megan Anderson, we saw Raina Brown go off last night. I just would say that it's going to be Fairfield.
I kind of see the same thing. It's going to be Quinnipiac Fairfield in the championship game, but I think Quinnipiac's got it in them this year. Coach Fabry said they've been working for it the entire season. They know they can win. They won yesterday against Fairfield, and they knew they could do it all season. They've been talking about this game all season, actually, in the press conferences. I think Quinnipiac now has the momentum, seeing we slayed the Giant. They can do it again. And that players like Gal Reeve, Carson Martin, and Jackie Grizzle all step up like they did yesterday. I think they can win.
Yeah, it's hard with Quinnipiac's schedules. We've seen the turnaround from Thursday to Saturday games and kind of the struggles that sometimes they face. So I'm worried about the stamina and the physicality of playing game in and game out. Of course, they earned that first round bye, which is great. They'll have a little bit of extra time off, but I'm worried about game after game, day after day. Will they be able to keep up with the amount of playing, especially with Gal Reeve and Jackie Grisdale playing the minutes that they're playing? Will they be able to continue with this consistency offensively and defensively?
Well, good look at that. Even compared to this weekend, how they played Mount St. Mary's on Thursday, turned around, got back at 3 o'clock in the morning that Friday, then played the game Saturday at 4 o'clock against Fairfield. So that went to their advantage. They won both games, though. I think they can do it. I think they're built for the season.
Yeah, we'll see if they can do it 3 times.
Yeah, when you look at just the Fairfield squad, like you said, 3 games in 4 days for Quinnipiac and Fairfield. We're all in agreement that Quinnipiac and Fairfield will most likely represent the women's side in the championship game, but Fairfield runs probably 9-10 people on a regular basis with the rotation. Quinnipiac is very top-heavy, Tony, to your point about where Gal Reeve did not come off the floor in Saturday's game against 40 straight minutes, which is just insane to think about in the retrospect of it all. But I think when Fairfield might have a slight edge, but they're going to have fresher legs, especially with that 3 games. They'll have a game on Wednesday, break Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday as well. So obviously the chaos of March is upon us. We love it, enjoy it, we love talking about it. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to switch over to the men's side, get Beckett and Nick on the desk. We're going to talk a little bit more about men's MAAC hoops.
Guys! We had to make a commercial for #that right now. What do we do?
How long do we have? We only had 2 months to do this.
We could explain that it's a pop culture news show that covers everything from movies, music, and video games.
Yeah, and we can also talk about how there's pre-recorded segments that vary from reviews to in-depth discussions.
We should also mention that it broadcasts live every Monday at 7 p.m. on Q30TV.com/watch.
I think that covers everything. Did you guys get that down?
Reporting from the Grove for Q30 News.
Reporting from the Miller Library for Q30 News.
Reporting from the Mount Carmel campus for Q30 News.
Reporting on Whitney Ave for Q30 News.
Here at Sports Pause, we like to have balance between having fun and working hard. Sometimes that competition we cover gets into our producing.
Tune in every Monday night at 9:30 at Q30TV.com/watch for all the news, highlights, and more. This is Sports Pause.
Do you enjoy debating Quinnipiac sports?
That's all flash, no pass. She didn't net it in the back of the net. That's not even a goal.
What are you doing pulling out rhymes?
Brady, that's like a crossover with a missed layup.
Bobcat Breakdown is the place for you, with debate, analysis, and so much more.
Matej Marinov. He is good, but oh man, is he bad. And
that team is amazing. How do you not put Fairfield women's volley?
Tune in to Bobcat Breakdown every Tuesday night at 9:30 p.m. on Q30TV.com/watch.
Welcome back to Inside the MAAC. It's time to flip to the men's side of the bracket. I'm joined by men's basketball beat reporters Nick Boyd and Beckett Calkins. Guys, it's the most wonderful time of the year. How are we feeling about it?
Absolutely electric, Connor. Like Tom Pecora said the other day, this time of year is like Christmas for basketball coaches and basketball fans. Yeah. Conference tournaments around the country have gotten started. I can't wait for the MAAC tournament to start.
Connor, it all comes down to this, right? The MAAC, it's a one-bid league. All comes down to the champion in Atlantic City.
Yeah, none of the records matter. It's all 0-0 from here on out. Bobcats had a chance to clinch the 1 seed in the MAAC on Thursday against Mount St. Mary's. Let's roll that highlight from M&T Bank Arena.
Yeah, Quinnipiac, the Mount, huge game. Bobcats trying to clinch it on their home court. Paul Otieno, 10 points away from 1,000 in his Quinnipiac career. His teammate Amari Monroe was given a game ball before for that achievement.
In the first half, Savion Lewis finds Monroe for the reverse layup, gets the scoring started with a little bit of flash there, Beckett.
Yeah, Nick, but Mount would respond. Dallas Hobbs drives, dishes, Dola Adebayo gets the 2 above the rim.
Alexis Reyes here driving, baseline gets stuck, but Amari Monroe flies through, two-handed slam for the junior.
Tony Wetmore, her favorite play, the blob, the baseline out of bounds, action from the Mountaineers. Adebayo rises to the rim. That would end the half 33-32, Quinnipiac.
What a dunk by Adebayo there. Second half, Otieno 4 away from 1,000. Why not let it fly? Ka-ching, cashes in the triple, and he'd get the magic number on the line in very next possession.
He's not done yet though, Nick. Pick and roll action with Lewis finds Otieno once again, and Otieno slams this one home. Beautiful pocket pass from Lewis.
The Lewis to Otieno connection delivers again. Mount trying to stay in this ball game. Never held a lead in it. Carmelo Pacheco, wide open corner 3, knocks it down, but it was too little, too late.
The Bobcats would clinch that number 1 seed on their home court, Nick. They won it 79-70 as you see him cutting down the nets.
They're all super happy. Huge moment for Tom Pecora there. Something that he didn't have the opportunity to do last year since they clinched it on the road. He's going to wear that net like a crown, Beckett.
A big-time celebration from the Bobcats on their home court. But Nick, how about Caden Bennett? 20 points, 6 threes. We haven't seen that outside shooting from the Bobcats all year.
Yeah, and he could be a guy that's due to get going in the conference tournament. And Bobcats are going to need shooters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, before we can go back to the video real quick of Tom Pecora putting on the crown of the net, it's got to be one of my favorite crowns, one of my best moments in college basketball. But when we take a look at the finalized MAAC bracket, the Bobcats have the 1 seed locked up and will take on the winner of the 8 seed Rider and the 9 seed Seattle. It should be an important matchup on Tuesday. Now, guys, if we look at these matchups across the MAAC, what's the most intriguing one that you guys have looking forward to that's marked on your calendars?
Yeah, I'm going to start off the quarterfinal round, Marist and Mount St. Mary's. That is a really interesting matchup for me because the Red Foxes, they started hot. They were kind of the favorite to win the conference about halfway through this conference schedule. They've lost 4 games in a row. And the Mount, they're tough. Dola Adebayo, Dallas Hobbs, we just saw them on that highlight. A great guard-big duo. Mount trending up, Marist trending down. That could be a potential upset pick in the quarterfinal round.
Yeah, I've been a guy who's been high on Marist for most of the season. They really impressed me early in the year. You might have got me right on breakdown the other night when you said that they might have peaked too early. Right now, they're sliding like a kid at the playground. I mean, 4 losses heading into the tournament is not something you can do. That is a good upset pick for you. I'm going to have to go with sticking in that quarterfinal matchup, Iona, Manhattan. These are 2 teams with a storied rivalry against each other, matching up as the 4 and the 5. They've split their season series. This is a series that could go either way, and the winner of that will take on the winner of either Quinnipiac or the 8-9 seed. So that's a match where, let's say the Bobcats get upset in that, could go straight to the championship and potentially be an upset team to look out for in the NCAA tournament.
Manhattan is a fantastic team too. They're well coached, and while they're not necessarily deep, they've got quality players throughout the first top 6-7 guys in their rotation. Will Sidnor is a beast, and Devin Dinkins has had a fantastic season, mostly coming off the bench this year.
Yeah, both of those guys are guys that I think will be getting some awards for Rookie of the Year for Sidnor and Sixth Man of the Year for Dinkins. They've both been fantastic, and looking at some of the other dudes, they got Swish Gilliard. He lit it up against the Bobcats. Wesley Robinson, guys who can really let it fly from 3. They're the number 2 offense in the MAAC for a reason. They're going to be pretty dangerous.
And even Fraser Roxburgh returning from injury, we heard that his impact, it's going to be felt for Manhattan, and he's already shown that in the last 2 weeks since coming back from that injury.
Iona's a tough team too. They've got some dogs, right? DeJour Reeves, Adam G. Those guys can really play, and those guys have clutch genes. They've hit a lot of big shots this season. That matchup's going to be so exciting. I think that'll be a matchup that comes down to the final possession or two. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, real quick, Nick. I'm surprised that you picked against Marist as a fellow guy from Poughkeepsie, New York. So surprised about that. But as we look at the bracket as a whole, a lot of matchups. This is March. We love the chaos that ensues. We've seen Quinnipiac as the 11th seed a couple years ago go all the way to the semifinals. We've seen Marist do the exact same thing, make it all the way to the championship game. This year, who's maybe 1, maybe even 2 teams that could make a similar run in the MAAC championship, in the MAAC tournament, excuse me.
I'll start off with Sacred Heart. They're the 7th seed. They're going to face the number 10 seeded Fairfield in that first round. Fairfield, no disrespect to the Stags, they're not great this year. This is kind of a rebuilding year for Fairfield. Sacred Heart, they're exceeding expectations so far in their first year in the MAAC. I think they should beat Fairfield. Last matchup, Sacred Heart against Merrimack, which is who they would play if they won. Sacred Heart won that. So I look ahead, that could be a potential upset pick. Sacred Heart over Merrimack. The Pioneers can shoot the lights out of the basketball, and that's a great thing to have against Merrimack's tough 2-3 zone. Last time they won, they only made 4 threes. They went 4 for 21 from deep and still beat Merrimack. That's a game that could be very, very interesting in that quarterfinal round.
I agree. I mean, Sacred Heart is the #1 offense in the MAAC. As the Sevens, yes, their defensive struggles have killed them at times this season, but they're a team where if they're hitting their shots, they're extremely difficult to beat. And they're a team that, if I'm an upper seed, one of the top 3 seeds, I'm worried about them. That's a team I'm really worried about if they can get past Fairfield. I'm going to stick with Manhattan. I think they're dangerous, Beckett. I mean, they played the Bobcats down to a final possession down at Dratty Gym, right? They're a team that also can shoot the lights out of the basketball. They're the #2 offense in the MAAC. I know defense wins championships. I know that. But if you can hit your shots in March, sometimes that can be the tipping factor.
And what did Manhattan do so well in that last game against Quinnipiac? They completely took Paul Etienne out of that game. They made Paul Etienne a negative attribute for Quinnipiac in that game, and that is huge. We haven't seen any other MAAC team really do that all conference season.
Yeah, I mean, Sidner and Robinson just dominated him on both sides of the floor, really. And they're a team that combines good big man play with elite guard shooting, and their big men can shoot it too. Like, let's not get it twisted. Their big men can really shoot it too. But they combine that with elite guard play, and when their shots are hitting, they're one of the toughest teams to beat in the MAAC. They're going into the tournament hot too, winning 4 in a row.
Yeah.
That's another factor that I think is going to be key.
Absolutely. We talk about peaking at the right time. Manhattan's certainly doing that right now. And they have played in so many 1-score, 2-score games this season. All their games are close. They can hang with anybody.
There's so much parity in the league this year, too, that there's a lot of teams that I wouldn't be surprised if make runs. You said the Mount. Obviously, Merrimack and Quinnipiac up at the top could, take care of business. I'm a little worried about Siena, too. Siena's a team that's gotten the Bobcats number this season. They beat them at home, right? And another team that can really shoot the basketball when things are clicking. And they've got a lot of guys on the outside, especially bigger wing guys, who could really let it fly.
Keep an eye on the Siena Saints, Connor.
Sacred Heart and Manhattan, book it now. Maybe even the Siena Saints make a little bit of run. We've talked about all the offense that happens, but Quinnipiac has one of the best defenses and defensive rebounding teams in the entire conference. And every team has their kryptonite, guys. What's Quinnipiac's kryptonite as the #1 seed heading down into Atlantic City?
In my eyes, it's the three-point line, right? Shooting the threes and defending the threes. That has been what has doomed them in every single one of their in-conference losses. Merrimack comes to my mind most vividly because of how Merrimack was able to move the ball around on the perimeter, create open looks with third or even fourth passes, and just drain shots, wide open shots. They were able to get the Bobcats in mismatches and connect on those shots. And obviously, they have good shooters. They're able to do that. But that was what ate into the Bobcats the most. And that was a theme throughout their non-conference play. They need to find ways to limit other teams' ability to get open shots, because when they contest the shots, they're a pretty solid perimeter defensive team. They have long, lanky wing guys who can really disrupt three-point shooters when they get on ball in their face. If they're able to make those third, fourth passes, it gets a little shaky. And the three-point shooting has not been good this year.
I absolutely agree, right? The three-point shooting, that's been their kryptonite all season. Why not now? It's going to continue right now. We haven't seen them consistently knock down shots. One thing that I circle in particular, Merrimack's zone defense, right?
Yes.
I mean, we saw that struggle last weekend. Quinnipiac just could not break down the tough 2-3 zone. Sure, it's a great zone. How do you beat a zone? You either get the ball to the back gap or you shoot the ball from the outside. Quinnipiac struggled doing both those things while Paul Etienne had a great day. No one else can really step up until Jaden Zimmerman in garbage time.
And I think another key thing, too, is going to be if the Bobcats are going to struggle if teams are able to limit their offensive rebounding. They are one of the best offensive rebounding teams in mid-major college basketball, but every single game they've lost, either Otieno or Monroe have been very limited as offensive rebounders.
And not to turn this into a Quinnipiac-Merrimack preview, but going back to that game again, we saw Savion Lewis as the primary man-to-man defender on Bud Clark. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if you throw a bigger combo guard like Caden Bennett at him. I think Caden Bennett the last few weeks has been a fantastic defensive piece for Quinnipiac, and that's something that if I'm Tom Pecora, I'm looking at that matchup a little.
I think Bennett's the best on-ball defensive guard on the team just because he has that size and length advantage. The only thing that concerns me is his fouls. He's fouled out in the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. So that would be something that you'd have to be worried about, where if he gets to 3 fouls and it's only 5 minutes to go in the first half, then who do you throw on him?
Yeah, I think just to answer that question right away, something I was thinking of as well is just Jaden Zimmerman the first year. He's super lanky. He can play pretty much the entire, picking up Bud Clark 94 feet. I do agree, though, that when it comes to that, back to your point, not making a Merrimack Quinnipiac preview potentially, but when you look at the 2-3 zone that Merrimack has been able to do, the Bobcats seem to maybe get the ball to the free throw line because that collapses down their defense. And even if they do kick it out and they miss a couple of shots, it's still a great shot to play inside out. Great brand of basketball. But as we get down to the tournament, like we said, we don't want to make it a Merrimack Quinnipiac preview, but who is going to be representing the MAAC in the NCAA tournament? Is it going to be the Bobcats? Is it going to be Merrimack? Guys, what are you thinking?
Nick, I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, man, this is so difficult because, again, you could make a case for literally any team to potentially win the conference, right? I think it's going to come down to Merrimack and Quinnipiac at the end of the day, though, because those are the two best teams. Quinnipiac has shut down defense. They're the best rebounding team in the conference. Merrimack can kill you in every facet of the game. It's so tough. I hate to say it. I think Merrimack comes out on top. Okay. I think there's a good chance they come out on top. And there's a great chance I'll be wrong and it'll be, the Mount and Iona in the finals, right? Because that always seems to happen. But I can't really bet against the type of team basketball they play with Bud Clark, the rest of those shooters, Matt Beck, Sean Trumper, Devin Savage, right? They have a lot of great weapons and they're getting hot at the right time.
I agree. They're getting hot at the right time. They're very well coached. And that's why I also have Merrimack going to that championship game. I think we're set. I think it's Merrimack, Quinnipiac. I think they're the two best teams in the league. Marist, they've kind of fallen off to that third tier, and it's Quinnipiac and Merrimack. That's the top two. I don't want to sound like a homer, but I do think the Bobcats can defeat Merrimack if they use that last game as a learning experience. You gotta learn how to beat the zone. Quinnipiac hasn't shown the ability to do that this season. I think they could do it in Atlantic City.
And Quinnipiac had success in Hamden when they played Merrimack. Yeah. They beat them, I believe it was like 81-76, right? So a higher scoring game where their offense was clicking, but the biggest thing they did there was limit Merrimack's shooting, right? If they can find a way to do that in the tournament, they can beat them. And I think it's almost a coin flip between the two of them, between who's hot on the right day, but I just can't bet against the team that's the better shooting team.
And if you're Quinnipiac, obviously you want to throw bodies at Bud Clark. You want to try and limit him. But if you can stop his teammates, it doesn't matter. One guy is not going to beat you. Let Bud Clark beat you. Slow down Matt Beck. Slow down Sean Trumper. If those guys are limited, Etumnu, he's a force defensively also. We haven't really talked about him. He could very well win MAAC Defensive Player of the Year this year. Slow down those role players. Slow down the supporting cast for Bud Clark and Merrimack, and the Bobcats will have a good chance at winning that game.
I agree with that. That might be the strategy to force Clark to be the scorer, limit his, maybe even copy them and run a zone on him, right? Just have Amari Monroe kind of sit in that trap and get those loose balls off, which is exactly how the Warriors beat the Bobcats down in North Andover.
Yeah, if Merrimack and Quinnipiac were to make it to the championship game, both of those teams would be the first time they make it to March Madness as Division I programs. Merrimack just coming into the Division I scene within the last couple of years. And I think that it's going to be an extremely interesting matchup. It's March, it's chaos. We love it. I know we talked about it not making a Quinnipiac Merrimack preview, but I feel like that's exactly what we got.
Yeah.
So to continue that trend of Merrimack and Quinnipiac, Bud Clark and Amari Monroe, guys, quickly. These two seem to be their front runners for MAAC Player of the Year. I'll let you have your final minute or two saying, but who do you guys think is going to represent the MAAC for the best player in the conference?
Yeah, I'm going to start off here. I think we all know Nick's answer. If you've been following him throughout the season.
He's a great player.
He's a great player. They're both great players. Yeah. And if you asked me a week ago, before that Quinnipiac-Merrimack game in North Andover, I would have taken Amari Monroe. Okay. And I think Amari Monroe is a fantastic player. And usually I give the award to the best player on the best team if it's close, right?
Yeah.
Quinnipiac is the best team. Amari Monroe is the best player on Quinnipiac. That being said, I think Bud Clark has shown down the stretch that he deserves to be MAAC Player of the Year. And while they're both great players, Amari Monroe has been excellent all season. Bud Clark, he's just been fantastic. He's been stellar for Merrimack. The things that he does offensively, while also not being a liability defensively at his size, listed at 5'10", is so important. He gets his teammates involved. He knocks down shots. He had an 8-steal game against Quinnipiac. I mean, that is unheard of. I got to go Bud Clark. It's got to be close, though, Nick.
Yeah, it's, again, probably a very close vote. Monroe is a fantastic player. This is nothing against him. He's one of the better players in the conference. I think he's got the depoy locked, right? That, in my opinion, I think he's got that locked. But Clark's ability to affect the game at every facet. He's not only one of the best point guards in the conference. He's one of the best scorers in the conference, best shooters in the conference, best off-ball defenders on the conference. I just think he's done enough this season, and he's been the most valuable player on his team. I think the award's his to lose.
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation to have to kind of wrap this up. Merrimack making a lot of noise in their first year in the MAAC, but that will do it here for Inside of the MAAC for Q30 Sports. Everyone behind the scenes has done a great job, and we'll see everyone down in Atlantic City, Nick, Beckett, Tony, and Brittany. You can follow along on all of our social media at Q30 Sports on Twitter and Instagram. Like I said, for Tony, Brittany, the guys to my left and right, Nick and Beckett, I'm Connor Corey. Guys, honestly, I hope all the things that we talked about just don't happen, just because it's the chaos of March.
They probably will, right? That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
there's going to be an upset, and it's going to make us look very wrong.
It's chaos. It's March basketball, and we all love it. Thanks for tuning in to Inside the MAAC.